All right, welcome everyone to the first MetaNet ICU developer sandbox meeting. So this is going to be a monthly occurrence from here on out. And the goal of this forum is to provide a place for application developers to come in one place, share ideas, ask questions. We're hoping to expand this each month, and also I think the plan is to spread out the time zones a little bit. So I know that this time zone didn't work great for some people. I know Brendan over there and Brad, you guys had to wake up kind of early. So I think maybe we'll try and spread out the time zones for each month to allow people in different geographical locations to join. I'm just going to kind of lay out the ground rules here. It's kind of an open forum for everyone to participate. We're gonna hope that everyone can kind of keep it civil and on topic. So the goal here is what I will do is so Brendan and I are your co-hosts here. So we'll be moderating this. We will unmute people as needed. If you want to raise your hand to ask a question, you can hit the participants tab, and then there is a raise hand button or a more or raise hand button. You can hit that button. That will alert us that you want to ask a question. If you could then just post in the chat who your question is addressed to, we can make sure that that works out. I'm going to post this in the chat too for people that join late so that they understand the rules when they come in. But yeah, basically raise your hand, post in the chat. We will get to you and then unmute you. You cannot unmute yourself. And then just ask your question or make your comment how you see fit. We're going to have some structure at the beginning here. First, Brad will come in and talk about the testnet. And then we'll kind of move it more to an open forum, but try to keep things on topic. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else too much to say. I may have to drop off at some point soon, but Brendan and Joel will be here to help. So again, thank you guys for coming. Looking forward to seeing how this evolves. And I will pass the ball over to Brad, and I will unmute you, Brad. Thank you. Yeah.
I just unmuted Brad, so I think, or at least.
I cannot unmute him. Yeah, I cannot unmute him.
There we go.
No, there he goes. Hey, Brad.
Hey, guys. All right.
Welcome.
I guess I'll start by saying, for those who don't know me, I'm Brad and I work with Enchain, and I'm heading up the Bitcoin scaling test network, which you can see at bitcoinscaling.io. Basically, this is our playground for everything Bitcoin and big blocks. We actually just reset we didn't reset it. We rolled it back yesterday, the scaling test network. We were at block height about 10,000, and we rolled it back to 2950. The reason for that, because it was approaching 1 terabyte in size, and even though we can handle it, we don't need to handle that sort of amount of dead data at the minute. And we're going to be moving into our next phase of testing, where we're going to be increasing the block size substantially, I will say, and we'll let the actual number be a bit of a surprise. But yeah, 128 meg is just the beginning for Bitcoin Scaling Network, and we really, really, really want to get people excited about the scaling test network and do all of their development on it, because everything the scaling network is hoping to achieve is coming to mainnet or already is on mainnet. So yeah, I'm here to try and encourage everyone to any app development you're doing, whether it's using Unwriters tools or something of your own, bring it to the scaling test network and really see how it goes, because that's going to be mainnet. And for those of you wondering, the Bitcoin scaling network currently is running the same version of Bitcoin as the mainnet. The only difference is the miners, which are running a unreleased version, but that's coming out in the next fork. But every other node in the scaling test network is running the same version as the mainnet. So the continuous 128 meg blocks that we've had for weeks on end until we just reset it is achievable on mainnet because it's running the same code. I'll hand it back to you, Connor and Brendan.
So Brad, I think it'd be great if we could kind of go over what's being done with the shotgun and how it's been kind of used to tailor that process of making the big blocks. And so I know there's been, it's been changed so that it is generating a lot of transactions with op return outputs that, so to kind of, I guess, demonstrate that the network actually is very, very good at handling smaller numbers of larger transactions versus, millions and millions of tiny transactions. But, we're also looking to fix that as well. Can you give any more sort of detail about that?
Yeah, so part of the main reason for that is Core, in their almighty wisdom, didn't bother to use the multiple threads that have been available to programming and computing for a long time now. So whenever a transaction comes into the Bitcoin node, it has to stop everything that it's doing and process that transaction. So when you send it 600,000 tiny transactions, that just logs it up. But when you send it, 10,000 very large op return transactions, that's actually easier for the node to process, because the node doesn't give a crap about the op return data. It just does the little bit of it, the script that it needs to worry about, and then carries on. It does need more bandwidth to move that transaction around, but there's less of them. So we have seen the effect where it's easier with the shotgun to send a smaller amount of transactions with a larger amount of data to produce the bigger blocks. But we are still pushing with the shotgun team to maximize the actual number of transactions being pushed through the node, which we have got our guys working on that. And the current release of Bitcoin SV actually does have a little bit of parallel processing happening, but we're obviously planning to take that much, much further.
Awesome. And so sorry, Connor, you go.
Yeah, I guess I was going to ask the question, are you seeing a lot of it? I mean, what would you encourage application developers to use the testnet for? It sounds like maybe there's lots of things being done on mainnet that could be done more aptly on the testnet, and how can they get involved pretty easily?
I would suggest everything. If you're going to build anything, you shouldn't be building it in production as a general good practice in programming. But I would use everything for the scaling testnet. We have the faucet there, so if you need funds, you can simply put in an address there, and it'll send you some funds to play with. The benefit of it being a test network is that it doesn't matter what you do, because you're not spending real money to develop and test, and you are getting what we hope will be the future state of the network, as far as the amount of transactions being pushed through it, block sizes. So whatever you're developing needs to be able to handle these edge case situations where we have a burst of large blocks. We do expect that in the real world, you're never actually going to have 24/7 maximum blocks. One, because they're not going to be a block size eventually, and two, that's just unrealistic. Like PayPal, any banking system, they're not just 24/7 at max capacity. They have burst periods, which is another thing that we have talked about with the shotgun team, that we want to start doing periodic burst testing. So say a typical day, you have everyone goes and buys something at lunchtime, maybe at Amazon, or they go to the shops after work, or maybe there's a weekend sale. You would see a burst of transactions, and then things return to normal. So part of our testing on the scaling test network, and part of the testing that if you're an app developer, you would want to be aware of and ready for, is that sort of situation where the network will go through a massive burst period and then settle back down. So whilst at the moment our focus has definitely been, flat out push the network right to the cap, I do think that it'll be beneficial for anyone developing anything on Bitcoin to use the SDN as we try and move it to more organic traffic simulations.
So Brad, I think probably one thing that a lot of people would want to know is that, there's a lot of tools that are actually out there and live on mainnet now. So, BitDB and all of the variations of that that have been created by the Unwriter and, various, I think there's about half a dozen different explorers. Can we expect to see those tools becoming available on testnet?
I would love Unwriter to do it himself or do it themselves, whoever they are. But yeah, we have thought about running a BitDB instance for the STN if no one else steps up to do it.
Sure.
But
so
other
at the
than that,
moment,
currently we're running the mining pool, which is fully operational. So if you want to join in and mine on the scaling test network, feel free to join. Anyone with a computer can do it because the difficulty is low at the moment until someone thinks to put an ASIC miner on there. But yeah, any service on the mainnet or any of the tools that have been made available, if there is a demand for it, please fill out the contact form on the website, get in touch with us, and we'll see what we can do if someone doesn't beat us to it.
Sure.
So where can people go to find more information about how to configure nodes and the faucet for the STN?
Yep, so bitcoinscaling.io is going to be the hub for everything to do with the scaling test network. So the links there for the Block Explorer, mining pool, and faucet. There is a page I added the other week for getting started, which is just a straightforward guide on how to download a node and connect it to the STN and start developing. And I do have a few other guides written that will be going up there eventually. For example, how to connect to the mining pool and stuff like that.
Okay, so do we have any questions from the audience for Brad? If you would like to, so for anyone who has just joined us, if you go to the bottom of your Zoom window, you will see there is a tab called Participant. If you click on that, you would be able to see on the side of your screen a new window will open up, and you should from within that window be able to raise your hand, which will allow us to see that you've got something to say or a question to ask, and we can unmute you so that you can talk to Brad. Okay,
so Ted has a question. So you're unmuted.
Yeah. My question was, I've been researching you guys for a while now, and I'm really excited about these opportunities. But I contacted the N chain, like you had suggested, about a week ago. I received an email asking me what time zone I was in. Somebody to get back to me. It's been about a week now. I'm just wondering, is there a lot of people doing this, or have I slipped through the cracks in some way? Because I'm convinced this is where I need to be, so I'm not going anywhere. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Did you contact through the support at Bitcoin SV address?
No, I believe it's through the N-Chain site, so I'm clueless on how to get in this thing.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say you got lost through the cracks.
Okay, that's cool. That's the best answer I heard all day.
Absolutely. Either use the contact form on the Bitcoin scaling website, because that will either come direct to me or get filtered to me quite quickly.
And can you say that one more time, or could somebody send me that or chat me that?
We can put that into the chat.
Very good. Thank you.
Brad, if you wouldn't mind typing that email address into the chat there. Okay. Then I think the next to raise their hand was Gal or Taurus JKL. So I'm just going to unmute you there. So Gal, take it away.
Yeah, hi. First of all, thank you for organizing this forum. My question to Brad, do you know if the scaling testnet Block Explorer supports the Insight API?
No, it doesn't at the moment, but we have got plans in the pipeline to make it match one-to-one with Insight, because we know a lot of services have built on the Inside API just because of it being the biggest and one of the first ones out there. But yeah, currently, no, it doesn't.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay, Shrugger, you are unmuted.
Actually, my answer, from looking at the Bitcoin scaling website, it answers it. My question was just about address formats and prefixes, but it looks like those are the same as mainnet. So
it should be very. There should be not much difference between the things you build for scaling testnet and the things that eventually go on mainnet. But yes.
Originally, we actually did have a different address format and things like that, but we decided to keep it the same as testnet so that all the tools that had been written already didn't need to be changed, which is something we found quite quickly would be a bit of an annoyance.
Okay, Tone's notes. I've unmuted you, so take it away.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So the question is, when the user-activated stress test, I guess, that Ryan and others have been conducting lately, the large file, large quantity upload strategy at the moment involves creating, in Ryan's case, I think thousands of extra UTXOs so that he doesn't run into the limit of how many there are in the mempool chain together. Is there any comment you want to make about the advisability of doing that? Are we creating a problem for ourselves if we encourage that pattern? Alternatives? Is it just a short-term thing that's going to go away before it bites us in the rear end?
I don't think there's any issue doing it. I think ultimately it just comes down to the op-return limit, which is set by the miners. There's no real reason why a miner couldn't decide to up that to 1 megabyte, 2 megabyte, 10 gigabytes. That's purely on them. But yeah, as far as
we're nowhere close to overflowing the software's ability to manage UTXO pool.
No, not yet. I don't believe so. And we are working on ensuring that we don't ever have that problem either.
Okay. Is the current software keeps it all in RAM, or is it already a tiered storage system?
It's all in RAM at the moment, but we are, the SV team are definitely working on either a tiered solution or definitely a priority solution. So maybe running a second mempool for stuff that then the miner is not going to process for whatever reason, stuff like that.
Okay, thank you, Brad.
All right. So are there any further questions from the audience? If you do want to ask something, either type it in the chat or raise your hand in the participant interface there. Otherwise, Brad, do you have anything to add to what you've been saying? Is there anyone other than the scaling testnet team using the scaling testnet at the moment, or is it a bit of a ghost town?
Yes, there is. I don't know how public they want to be about it, but there is a few others.
Sure. Great. Well, that's great to know.
Yes, we hope to move all the active development to the scaling test network.
Sure. And how often do you plan to? Because I guess quite often when people are building projects, there may be like a reasonable amount of setup that's actually happening on the blockchain. Stuff being loaded in or preloaded before what they're actually building can start to work. In those cases, how often do you think you would be? Because I'm kind of thinking from for our work in Tokenized, there's actually a fair bit of stuff like you've got to create contracts and build assets and then distribute them before you can actually start testing the platform itself. How often will that testnet be resetting, and what sort of is it going to be made public? Like, is there going to be a time and a date, on the first of every month or every quarter?
Okay, yeah. So we don't have a fixed schedule for doing the resets, or in this case, it was a rollback. We do have plans for the SDN only, I profess to that, have a centralized system which will announce to the network that there is going to be a reset coming. And we hope to get it pretty much automated. This first rollback was obviously is a very manual process. If anyone here happened to be running on the STN, I do have a guide on how to roll back if you haven't. If you start a new node today, you'll probably end up on the correct chain anyway. But yeah, the resets are not scheduled at this time, and we are aware that if you do have a system or a service that requires preloading a lot of stuff onto the chain, that it may be annoying if you have to redo that all the time.
So could you maybe, so would it be fair to say that there would be the ability for you to actually in future say that, you know, every time you get to block,
guys,
50,
guys, I'm going to interrupt and pause recording 1 second all. Did I pause? Right.
All right.
Okay, we're back to recording. Nice little flyby from Steve.
I think we were talking about the resets or the rollbacks.
Yes.
So basically, they will probably happen in the future. They're not.
Do you think they'll happen at like a regular fixed block height? So you would say, you know, every time the network reaches, you know, 50,000 blocks or whatever, or 10,000 or whatever it ends up being, that you would revert back to block 1,000 or something like that, just so that anybody who's actually built something significant can be ready with their own CPU miner to, you know, potentially actually fork the testnet themselves to keep that running for their own testing for a while.
Yeah, all the future ones will definitely be announced ahead of time. The only reason we really did this one was to bring back the disk size.
Yep.
So we were using about 677 gig or something, because 128 meg blocks 24/7 is about 18 gig on the chain every day. So just to make our lives a bit easier, we just wound that back before we bring everyone onto it.
Sure.
But yeah, if we do a future rollback, we would definitely try and take in the opinions of the community as to what block height that should be if needed, to prevent anyone from having to, you know, restart all of their development if they have things on chain that they need. And yeah, we would announce ahead of time. So if you did want to fork off and keep a private version of the chain, then that would be fine too.
Sure. Okay, we have I can see Rogelio's raising his hand, so I'll just open up the floor to him. Rogelio, you should be unmuted.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for hosting this forum. My question is also regarding the resets. Are you currently working with Untitled in order to develop an automated way of resetting not only the Bitcoin database, but also the MongoDB database on which Untitled's tools depend on?
We've had no contact about the STN with Unrider at this stage, but if you'd like to reach out and try and organize something, that would be all right with us.
Okay.
As far as, I mean, I haven't looked at the BitDB code base too closely, but as far as the resets go at this stage, if you are running one today, I think it would be very simple to simply just clear the database and resync with a node, because the rollback we just did was back to block 2950, at which point the STN blockchain was less than a megabyte in size. So Unrider's BitDB would be able to sync that up or resync that up from scratch, you know, in a matter of seconds, most likely. But it would be something we need to consider for future resets or rollbacks. And it's not something that I plan to do willy-nilly and, you know, every week. It'll be a scheduled event that everyone's well aware of before it takes place.
Good. Sorry, Rogelio, I saw that you actually muted yourself again, but you had your hand raised. I've unraised your hand, so if you did have more of a question to ask, please just put your hand back up again. and also for any, okay, you're all good. All right. So does anyone have any further questions about the testnet? Brad, do you have anything further that you'd like to add on that? Because otherwise I was thinking we might kind of open the floor to people for more general talk about development on Bitcoin. So
I think that's all I have for the minute.
Sure. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. I'm sure for most of the people here, that's a lot of new information. So, is there, so for the people in the audience, do we have, do any of you want to kick things off? Or do you have any questions that you'd like to put to the floor? Otherwise, I'll just have a bit of a chat about Tokenized and what's happening there. So, as you're all aware, Tokenized is the token system that James Belding and the team, which I'm part of, have been working on now for quite a while. We are currently in the middle of a big. So when the unfucking first happened and we got access to all of that additional space in the op return, because we hadn't actually released anything except like a very alpha version of the smart contract, we decided that it was not just worthwhile but necessary for us to go back and actually incorporate. With the 220 byte op return limit, we found ourselves very limited in the scope of what we could achieve, and so with a 100 kilobyte upgrade, that just gave us a huge opportunity to add much more depth and versatility to the protocol, and so we actually decided to go back and basically do, I mean, it's not a complete redesign or anything. The protocol is still very, very similar to what it originally was, but the amount of information that we're carrying within the actions has been increased a lot, and giving us a lot more the ability to define things with much more granularity and include a lot of information that before we may have just had. So now we can actually insert entire contracts into the formation transactions and things like that. So, which is very exciting, and there's more to build upon that as we move forward. We're hoping to release our documentation package within the next, within less than a week. So we're really finalizing that right now, and once that is out there, so people will be able to start talking to people about what they're looking to build, and really helping them to start engineering things and understanding what they need to do to talk to the smart contract agent. So in terms of what Tokenized is going to release, so obviously the platform comes in a few different parts. So we actually have the smart contract agent, and that is an autonomous agent that runs kind of independently, and it just watches the blockchain, and you speak to it. The only thing that it will respond to is on-chain communication. And so when you turn on the agent, there's no contract. It's just sitting there. It's not doing anything. And then you have to send it a contract formation action, or a contract order, I should say, or contract definition, I should say. And so in that contract definition, you tell it, I want to create a contract that does this and that, and has these features.
I have a question. Sorry, I can't raise my hand. So I have a question for you, Brendan.
Sure.
Tokenization and everything. What is the plans on any integration towards, say, like having money button, being able to swipe with money button, and to be able to have that integrated with tokenized goods?
Yeah, somehow? Absolutely. So, so the way it works, once you have a contract up and running, it has an address. So the contract agent has an address. The contract actually operates at a derivative of the agent's primary address. When to speak to it, it's literally that you send it transactions with what you want to do packed into an op return. And so to use that with the money button, you would literally be packaging what you want the money button to do, or to tell the contract to do, into the op return as a function of the money button. So if you literally had a money button there and it purchased, say you want to move to a tokenized voucher system for access to the MetaNet or to the MetaNet ICU, you could have a money button there where a user comes in and they type in, their email address and whatever, and it packages all of that into a token purchase or a token transfer, and packages Bitcoin with that. And then when they click the money button or swipe the money button, it actually sends a token transfer action to the smart contract that has the money attached to it and says, basically, please send me a voucher. And as long as the programming that has built that request into the op return that you package into that request in a valid way, the smart contract will, and that the contract is not whitelisting people and all that kind of stuff. It'll send a coupon. So it should be relatively straightforward. We have toolkits coming out for I believe there's already JavaScript, Python, and Go languages to basically make it quite easy for people to construct those packets to talk to the contract. So
I'm just going to ask a question. There's a couple of questions in chat, and I'm going to add to just what you were saying as well. People should also be looking at the tools that Unwriter has been pulling out. If you are able to use his tools, you can build things and then integrate tokenized things. Yeah, and if you built that platform already using some of Unwriter's tools and you prepared yourself, and then you're going to be really ahead of the game. So I'm just throwing that out there. But I'm going to ask Shrugger's question. Does the spending address matter for both transactions, or is the data in the op return signed separately?
Yep, absolutely. So the spending address does matter. So the smart contract will always use the address that the input that pays for the transaction came from as its response point. So when you talk to the smart contract, especially if it's a smart contract with whitelisting, you must speak to it from an address that it knows. In an instance where you're selling, like a coupon or something like that, it doesn't really matter. You can speak to it from any address, but it will respond back to the same address. So that it does matter.
Another question from Jonathan. Are you working on Ricardian contracts as described in Craig Wright's blog, i.e. corresponding legal documents?
I can't really talk too much about that, but yes.
I can answer that one. Yes, Ricardian contracts are like basically where you have a human readable contract which can now be contained in the op return, which will be better contained in the op return. So basically you swipe a money button, you can have some tokenized format returned as like a ticket loyalty thing or a ticket or something. And also in that op return as well, you combine a contract. A human readable contract, not just like a transaction hash where it actually says this payment is for a concert ticket for whatever, and you've also got the concert ticket in the process as the tokenized format. So if anyone knows about when you scan your QR codes at trains and airplanes and things, imagine swiping the op return, sorry, the money button, and having in there the tokenized format, which shows the QR code. So you basically show an Explorer on your phone, the transaction, and you just scan that and think, there you go, that's social payment. There's another question from Jonathan. Also, will the contracts be saved on Unwriters B protocol? Well, they're basically saved on the transaction. It depends. You need the protocol to read it. So Unwriters will be able to read contract formats, and later there will be other protocols which will be able to read whatever format you've written your contract in.
Yeah. So
The
tokenized contracts will be built into the tokenized protocol. So we haven't at this stage made any efforts to make that compatible with B protocol. And to be clear, I'm not even sure what we would need to do that. But it seems to me that it possibly wouldn't be too difficult. When you do buy a token, you do not receive a copy of the contract itself, but what you do receive, or what any tokenized compatible wallet should be able to do, is to straight away point you to the contract under which your token was created. And so if you can pull out that, when you pull out that op return, the details of the contract are in there. So
I have a question. Actually, sorry, I have a question, Ben. Because I'm also very eager about learning about tokenizing and how to tie it in. And I'm sure many other people are very eager because it brings a whole new level to the whole MetaNet thing. When people are this eager to learn, where can they go? How can they learn from you and the team?
Look, at the moment, we are, because it was quite a significant upgrade and it's put us a little bit behind. So at the moment, we're literally like head down, tail up building. And so we've kind of kept ourselves very quiet and not really exposed too much to the world. But I'm hoping that within kind of the next week, we're going to start releasing a lot more information. So that documentation package. And so from that, then we will become much more available to discuss any questions about that. So people can join our Telegram group. And so the whole team is in that group. And what I will do is I will actually put a link to that in the chat here. So
meanwhile, while he's putting the link there,
when I find it, I'll put it in.
I'm going to just mention from Shrugger, if anyone has any questions about Unwriters tools, he's been having a look at the code base and he thinks he can answer some questions. So while Brendan is talking and we're continuing this, if anyone does have any questions, ask and I will point to Shrugger to see if he can give an answer.
Sure. Okay, so going back to the operation of the protocol, so if and I'm going to try very hard not to say anything that's not really already quite described in the white paper, but it's based on the most of you would probably recall a little bit more than a year ago. Johannes Vermorel, who was at LOCAD and was in charge of the TerraB project, which I believe has now been migrated to a new name and new team. But he released the Tokenized protocol, which was probably the original inspiration for Tokenized. So we built basically what he defined, and obviously we put our own spin on it. But it's kind of the framework that he came up with is what we use. So it's a request response or a request response protocol. So basically, any action that changes the status of the contract, and that is to either change the contract itself or change where the assets are, or to make changes to the assets themselves, is a two-step process. And so by that we mean, when you want to transfer a token, you ask the agent, I want to transfer, may I please transfer tokens to this address? And the smart contract will evaluate your request for validity. So it will say, if you're trying to move tokens that are potentially, say, a whitelisted token type, and the address that you're trying to move to is not on the whitelist, it will basically respond with a rejection action that says you're trying to send this to someone who's not on the whitelist. And so then you would have to go back. The whitelisting process would require you to go and register an address with the registry and have the registry prove, you know, whatever the details are. Some of that isn't quite ready yet, but then you would then be able to transfer the tokens to that person. So the smart contract agent is always in charge of what's happening. And so any request must receive a response from the agent to manifest change to the status of the contract. So if someone says, oh yeah, I sent you tokens, and you can see that they've put a send out, but you haven't received a response from the smart contract, you have not received tokens. So all of that, so someone's asking, does that response happen on chain? All requests and all responses are sent using on-chain messaging. So we don't do this. The smart contract agent is basically a black box. You can't hit it from anywhere off-chain, except, you know, not to do anything to do with the contract. It will not make any changes to the contract from outside of on-chain instructions. And the reason for that is, when you send those instructions onto the blockchain, then obviously you have a complete record from the instant the contract was created of exactly everything that has happened on the contract. And if there ever was a dispute about where assets are, or who they've been given to, or changes that have been made to an asset or to the contract, that you would be able to go back and have a total audit record of the entire set of instructions. So yeah, that was very important to us, that it all be on chain. The agent itself is basically like a microservices thing that sits in the cloud. You spin it up, and it just waits. It just watches its wallet, and when the instructions come into the wallet, it wakes up, pulls the instruction out, looks at what it's being asked to do. It keeps a complete set of contract information in its own memory, so that it doesn't have to go back every time and obviously scan the whole blockchain to see where things are at. But it can also rebuild. So if that contract, if the server running that contract fell over and that status was lost, you can always start it back up again, give it its keys. It will go in, look, go back through the history of that wallet, see what's happened, and it can basically rebuild that entire contract from scratch. So yeah, we're very happy with how it's all come together, and you know, we think it's going to be a very powerful tool for people to use. And so we do have over 50 different token types scheduled for development, but to kind of take away some of the load in this first initial phase, where we're going with just 6 token types when we release. So we're going to have, I'll just address this question. So Jonathan has asked, will agents be open source? And the answer is yes. That the agent itself will be completely open source. We're going to release the code for that. So anybody will be able to run their own agent. And So our business model will be partially based around actually operating our own set of agents and managing contracts on behalf of people. So there are really three parties involved in the creation of a smart contract. So you actually have the operator, which is the person who owns the agent and runs the agent. There's the issuer, who is the person who wants to build the contract and create the tokens. And then there's the actual agent itself. And those three can all be the same, or they can all be different. The smart contract is autonomous. It's not a person, but so you can actually take a contract and tell it you're moving to a new agent. So if you don't like the service that this agent run by that operator is giving you, you can actually tell your contract, we're ending our agreement with this agent, we're going to move here. And that agent maybe has lower contract fees or whatever. And so you can actually move your whole contract to a new agent and simply plug it in and have a different agent that's still running the same tokenized protocol, but doing it for your contract now instead of this old one. And so there's definitely that flexibility. We want people building businesses around running contracts. So yes, the agent will be open source. You will be able to run your own agent, but that's a lot of overhead for people. And so we actually don't foresee that that will be the thing that a lot of companies will do. It will be much easier for them to simply pay the contract fees to an operator to use their agent. So what was I talking about before I got into that?
It was agents and it was no, I can't quite remember now. Well, we'll move it to a next subject. And we were talking tokenized, getting the tokens out there, and
So
how people were getting in touch with you, and you were doing contracts, Ricardian contracts, and
so Ricardian Contracts is definitely something that we are looking at, very closely and have a plan for. And when you see the documentation, if you've done your research about Ricardian Contracts, you'll very quickly be able to see how that's being handled. So look forward to seeing that. The documentation is quite succinct, I think. People are gonna, I really hope people like it. We've put a lot of work into making it not just look good, but be comprehensive as well. And so we'll be looking for a lot of people to go through that, ask us a lot of questions, because it's easy for us to look at it from our tokenized brain, where we're living and breathing the protocol every day, and miss like a glaring hole. And so we need people to go and say, oh, actually, what does this mean? And there's nothing about some other aspect that we maybe didn't even think that we needed to explain. So looking forward to having the world crawl over that. And
different types of tokens, that was one of...
Oh yes, that's right. So when that's right. Thank you, Andrew. So I was saying there's over 50 types of tokens that we have defined as tokens that we need to create. But for the first release, we're just doing like a small set of 6 tokens. And so we're going to have a membership token, a coupon style token, a ticket, a loyalty point token, a fiat peg, and one other one, which escapes me now. Hang on, let me just pull this up here. So I've got about half a dozen different windows
There's
open.
a question from Arslan there. I'm going to answer that one quickly. Can contracts be encrypted? Yes, yes, it can. The tools, people haven't quite developed the tools available for people yet, but it is possible. And something along the lines of, you know how there's the bit paste and whatnot where people can upload files. It will emerge that you'll have something like that where you can upload something and it will be encrypted, and you'll be asked to type in your password for decrypting it.
Yes, we expect in the future that you'll be able to, you know, issue the contract itself in an encrypted format. And so only somebody who is whitelisted with the registry would have a threshold key that enabled them to actually read that contract. Just the last token type. So we've got a coupon, a currency peg, a loyalty point, a membership, a ticket, and a common share. So a common share for issuing like security tokens. So, you know, we're very excited about that. We think, you know, we've probably covered in that a very large number of use cases. A lot of the other token types that we've defined are much more specific and niche, but they are things that do need their own token types. And so most of them are financial products. But yeah, so would the token types be more hybrid where one token can be all of those types? I would think that rather than having a single token type that's all of those things, you would create a contract, and then under that contract, you would actually issue multiple different tokens. So under one contract, you can basically issue an almost unbounded number of tokens. Like it's, you know, it's a 64-bit number. So I don't think, you know, if you're exceeding that number of different token types, that's almost impossible to manage. So you would create, so say, you know, you had a cinema website where people had to join to get discounted tickets and food coupons. You would allow people to sign up. You would give them a membership token. And when they come to your site on the MetaNet, they would use their membership token to access the site. Through that site, they would be able to buy tickets, and they would be able to buy coupons for things like snack bar and all that kind of stuff. So when they come to the cinema, they can pre-purchase, you know, like a combo, go to the snack bar, self-service, walking through, you know, they just scan their wallet, NFC, and hand the coupon back to the snack bar management thing, and it basically lets them through the turnstile. So, you know, there's no need for one token to be all those things, because you can actually create separate tokens for each of those, and one user can have all of those different tokens under the same contract. So you, as the contract maker, have the ability to create multiple different asset types. But under a contract, you can actually, when you create the contract, you can actually limit the number of different asset types that can be created. And you can also limit the governance power that different token types have under that contract. So for instance, if you did want to create a fiat peg, obviously you don't want to give voting rights to the holders of the money, right? So you would have, under that contract, you might limit that contract to 2 different token types. And so you would have the currency type token, where you issue like 100 million cents, and your token is 1 cent. And if you have 100 of those 1 cent tokens, you have $1. Then you would have a separate, probably at this stage, it would be a common share token, which has voting rights. And maybe you would only create 3 of those. And so you would give 1 to the issuer of the token, 1 to law enforcement, and 1 to some kind of legal body, maybe like a bank. And then between yourselves, those shares, you would then lock down the ability to create new currency such that you would have to have money in a bank account and locked into that bank account, and then come together as those three parties and vote to enable the contract to create more money. And so you can actually lock all of that down such that you have to have a vote to increase the asset count or do any kind of change. I mean, at the other end of that, you can actually make it completely free so that the issuer can change the details of anything they want at any time. So you have this great versatility to make things very, very rigid, or to be very flexible with what you can do. So you can even you can lock a contract down to only be able to create a certain number of assets. Within an asset type, you can say, well, we can only ever have this many of this asset. We can even create non-fungible assets. So assets where they have a quantity of one. So say for a digital collectible, you would basically, so say you wanted to create a limited run digital baseball card, you would create those as non-fungible assets. And so every card would have its own asset code and have its own metadata, and you could even change that metadata. And one of the things that you could do is, so currently when you sign, you can take a baseball card and give it to the baseball player and they'll put their signature on it. A different way to do that within this paradigm would be that you would actually be able to send that asset to the baseball player, have them modify the metadata so it's set, they can put a message in there and send it back to you. And then you now have that asset that is unique, which is that digital collectible card, which they have at one point owned and they have modified. So, there's this, you can do these and that's all very simple to do. It's just a matter of actually coming up with that and actually working that into your token system. So, are there any
question? Or while you were going to read it, I think. So, I'll read it out for you. Going from the top, from Shrugger, there's a few questions right now. Is there any way to provably burn tokens, or is that just a matter of how you implement the contract?
So the way that you burn tokens is, so only the issuer can burn tokens that the issuer holds. So the issuer would have to gather the tokens, and you can do that by either having people send them to you, or if you've given yourself the power to do so within the contract, you can confiscate tokens from people. And basically then you issue a change to the asset that reduces the quantity of that asset. And so say you have $1 million of fiat token, and somebody wants to withdraw 100,000 of that fiat from the bank account that everything is pegged against. They would have to send the issuer $100,000, and then the issuer would have to reduce the quantity of that asset by $100,000. And so then everybody can see on chain that now there's only $900,000 pegged to that asset. And then these three can all agree, okay, we'll let them withdraw the $100,000 out of that bank account. So yes, you can burn tokens, but we don't call it a burn. It's just a modification to the asset.
I'm going to give a short version of what Brendan just said. Say, for instance, I had a million fiat dollar tokens and I wanted to change 100,000, and I would go to the bank of Brendan and I would deposit my 100,000 fiat substitute token, and I would say I want to withdraw US dollar. And
exactly.
Then, assuming which, the way that all these fiat substitutes exist, because people have brought into them, the fiat is there, and the bank of Brendan would give me my thing, and that's pretty much it. So the quantity, is reduced by the amount, but the key thing is that it's all transparent, and you don't get anyone doing quantitative easing or anything like that, because
or if they do, you can see that they've done it.
Yeah, we like Brendan was talking about a method of converting to tokens as people deposit fiat. So you only create the tokens when people deposit the fiat, and vice versa. You only burn the tokens, as you're saying, when people convert the tokens back to paper money. I'm going to go to the next question.
Okay, so Brad, yeah, you can ask the question.
Okay, from Brad, you mentioned that the team was working currently on improvements. Is this because of some new discovery or method or natural progression of the code base?
So probably the biggest reason that we are still working on improvements was the unfucking. And so we were probably reasonably close to having like our original proof of concept release. And so we had a plan within the 220 byte op return for what we could create and release. And we'd even gone and asked, when can we expect to see the op return expanded beyond 220 bytes? And I think the answer we got about 3 days before the unfucking was it's going to be at least 3 to 6 months. And so we were kind of, okay, we were looking at this and saying, well, we need to get something out well before then. Let's just stick to this 220 byte plan that we've had since the beginning. And then we woke up and we had 100 kilobytes to play with. And we then thought about it more seriously that, well, look, there's actually a real good reason to delay the release and to implement. And we already had a very clear idea of where we wanted to go with the second version of the protocol. And once we had that extra space, and now that the space was available to us, before we'd actually gone public with anything, we decided we still had a fair bit of work to do to kind of polish all of that up. And we decided actually, well, let's actually do a slight pivot and not release that and not confuse the market, and eyes on the prize, go straight to that ultimate version. And so that's the main thing that's happening at the moment is the finishing of that, and it's getting very close.
Right, next question from Jack. Are you documenting how to link other tools? Sorry, let me re-say that. Are you documenting next week how to link other tools to Tokenized, or yet to sync these concepts together? How to?
At the moment, the documentation only really covers how to interact with a tokenized agent, and so how to what you need to tell it and in what format in order to instruct it to do things. So how to create a contract, how to modify that contract, how to create assets under that contract, and then how to move those assets around, enforce actions against those assets. So one of the big things that Tokenized does very differently to a lot of what's out there is that we have a full set of governance and enforcement actions. So we can actually freeze tokens, we can confiscate tokens, you can vote. So there's a lot of, when you set up the contract, you can actually lock down a lot of the fields in the contract and say, you can't actually change this field unless you go and have a vote, and that vote comes back and says that you can change it. And so, yeah, that's all coming in there. So we don't, it's not really linking to anything else, but there are libraries to facilitate building things that do interact with the smart contract, if you like. So,
question from Jonathan: would it be possible to trade tokens from different issuers and different contracts?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's only really one example that shows that at the moment. So, but look, if you want to go to a cinema and buy a ticket with a fiat pegged token, obviously the cinema contract and the fiat peg is not going to be the same contract. It's not going to be the same issuer. It's not even going to be the same operator. But all of those, so you can take fiat from your fiat wallet, which is managed by this agent under this contract, and transfer it to this user in exchange for something that this contract holds. And it's all done. That operation is still just two actions. So there's a request that says, I want to give these guys this, and they're going to give me that. And so basically between the two parties, you build the contract, and you both have to sign that contract that says we're going to do this exchange. A copy of that contract goes to both smart agents. They both evaluate it, and as long as they both don't find anything invalid, you're not trying to spend money you don't have. The coupon that you've asked for is real and all that kind of stuff. They then do a bit of a cross settlement. So they build a settlement template, they pass it between each other, they sign it and send it onto the blockchain. And so then your wallet and the wallet of whoever you're dealing with would see that settlement arrive, and it would just do the exchange. So your wallet can talk to multiple different contracts, and those contracts don't need to be under the same issuer or anything like that. So we have that atomic swap capability, and you can do many assets in one transaction. So you can have a transaction that buys 6 different things from 6 different contracts for fiat currency that you send to each of those different people.
I have a question here from Arslan. How can one feed external world data into tokenized contracts? Oracles, maybe?
Yes. So there will be the ability to do that sort of thing. Really, it's that the agent would have a connection to the real world, and it would only react. And you can certainly take that real world information and post it onto the blockchain as a message from the smart contract that says, here's the real world condition under which I'm going to do the following actions.
Just to extend on that a little bit, you could have a few different ways to interact and receive, like whatever token format. A human observer, human interacting and requesting a tokenized format. You could have an automaton, which is just an automatic software program just running, requesting tokens in either as a part of a key or payment or something. And also you can have oracles as well. Like automating can just happily run and run and run, but oracles are more like they just sit there and wait and then get triggered by either a token or a transaction, and then they can interact with the tokenized format. So you can have oracles interacting with the tokenized layer, depending what you're doing, depending what you're building, and then when needed, it interacts with the blockchain.
Yes.
We have another few questions. Is your implementation a result of standard scripts? I don't know if this is 2 separate questions. I'll ask it all in one. Okay, is your implementation a result of standard scripts? And if you had unlimited scripts, would you do it differently?
Okay, so that's a good question. Actually, the tokenized protocol exists outside of the Bitcoin protocol, and so while we use Bitcoin transactions that are built with the Bitcoin protocol to exchange messages, the tokenized protocol is completely encapsulated within the op return, so that data carrier that's in those transactions. And so the only thing that we use outside of op return is the addresses to and from which the UTXOs are being sent from and to. So we don't really make use of Bitcoin script in our system because it's not needed. So Yeah, if we had unlimited unlimited space in op return, it would be great for us, because the more space we have, the more we can embed in it. And the jump from 220 bytes to 100 kilobytes, so like a whatever that is, a 500-fold increase almost, or 400-fold increase, has enabled us to just achieve an amazing increase in functionality. Like, we look at what we used to have and what we have now, and I'm kind of like mind blown at how much more capability is there. But we can still see that there are things that we would like to do that we need that to be even bigger. And we want people to have the ability to embed really rich data into those transactions. And so that's, yeah, but it's so that's not really the question, but we don't really use Bitcoin script other than it as standard, like what would be a standard transaction today.
I have a question from Ted. For the settlement template, is there a specific wallet, or is this just any wallet that accepts BSV?
Good question. To receive tokenized tokens into your wallet, you need to have a wallet that is compatible with the tokenized protocol. So your wallet has to know how to look for tokenized transactions, and then how to unpack those transactions and read the information. And so then it comes down to wallet builders having to implement a tokenized framework for the users of their wallet. And so one of the things that will come out is the tokenized platform, which is a wallet. And so we have an issuer side system, which is where you go if you want to create contracts and create tokens and assets under those contracts, and then user wallets. And so that's like a mobile phone wallets and things like that can talk the tokenized protocol. But certainly we are talking to people that you have heard about and probably use their stuff about implementing tokenized into other wallets, because we definitely don't want to have a monopoly on any of this. We're making our agent open source because we want to basically get it out there and have as many people using it as possible. And it doesn't matter that it's not us.
I have another question from Joshua. Will any type of EDI datasets be in the documentation release next week? For example, purchase orders, invoicing, etc.
Unfortunately, that will not be released as part of what's coming out next week. And you can probably read a fair bit into that statement, but I'm not going to say any more about it.
I have a question then. Can you tell us, the audience, a bit about what's coming next week? You don't have to tell details, just, how can they keep their eyes open? And
yeah, sure. So, I'm sure a fair few of you have probably been to the Tokenized website, which is a pretty underwhelming kind of scrapped together. I think we still have the Bcash logo sitting up there, but we've been so this is one thing about I think James, is that he plays it very close to his chest. And, I'd be out there singing, oh, look at what we've got, but he's like, no, we're not going to release anything until it's done. And I think what I hope is that when people see it, like, what we didn't want to do was the same sort of thing that we've seen in other coins and from other token systems, where things get released in an alpha or beta level, and people try and use it, and the user experience is bad. They can't really, the functionality isn't all there. And so people who want to actually build stuff on top of it are kind of hamstrung. They end up expending a lot of effort, and they get to a certain point and they find, oh, actually, well, this function's not built yet, but I need that. And so they're kind of stuck. And so we really want to be in a situation where when we release it, that all of the functions that we we need are 100% ready to go, and that, you know, that everything is going to be very, I think, quite polished. I think it's going to be, we hope, setting a pretty high bar for how things should be when they are released. So yes.
I have a next question from Roger. Will your Python library be published on, I don't know how to pronounce that, PYPI, the Python package index, which can easily be installed and added as a dependency from ?
That is a great question. And I strongly encourage you to join us in the Tokenized Telegram group and ask that question, because I don't know. I'm sure that if that's something that's easy to do, that certainly we can probably do that.
Right.
So the Tokenized website URL is Tokenized. Actually, Tokenized.cash. We do own Tokenized.cash, but we have also purchased Tokenized.com. And it wasn't cheap, but we did it. And so you can go to Tokenized.com, and our white paper is at Tokenized.com/tokenized.pdf. And so that's going to be there. Yeah, but the main website is Tokenized.com. If you go to Tokenized.com and scroll all the way to the bottom, there's like a little subtext at the bottom. That's where there's actually a link to the Telegram chat. So you can jump into the Telegram chat. I'm in there, James is in there. Sometimes we do, because we're mostly on the Australian time zone, people do ask questions kind of at 9 p.m. and we don't get to it until the next day. So if we don't respond immediately, you know, please, it's not because we're ignoring you, it's because we're probably asleep.
I'm just finding the Telegram link. I'm going to put it in the chat.
Sure. Yeah, I should be able to pull it up here, but I can't.
I think that should be the right one.
It's not showing it to me.
And hopefully, viewers, if I remember, I will put it in the YouTube link as well. If I forget, you can find Brendan on Twitter at, was it Coin Guru?
At Coin Storage Guru. So
Coin Storage Guru.
Coin Storage Guru.
So I'm going to, we have around 9 minutes, and I'm going to rehash to people, but there's a lot of tools being built at the moment. Tokenized is kind of like next level stuff, and they are almost ready. I'm rather excited about it. So hopefully the developers out there amongst you who have been playing with things, who've been learning how to, you know, integrate Money Button or Handcash or other tools into things, and starting to get some ideas how you can monetize these things, because when you get tokenized stuff, you can really push the monetization up a new level. With all the things Brendan's been talking about, he's only mentioned a few things, and as he said, they're working on like 50 odd different formats. So the market's ripe. Developers, over this next month or so, we will get some basic HTML stuff, more than HTML, some basic stuff down on how to put things up on the MetaNet, different formats and things. And just to point out, everyone, not everything's going to be suddenly on the MetaNet. There's going to need to be a lot of constructing on the normal internet first, and learning how to put all this stuff together for people. When you have it all together and it's working and integrated, and then you can start thinking about slowly migrating your things to the MetaNet and saving even more on costs. Do we have any more questions for Brendan? Anyone? Right. Okay. Brendan,
well,
do you have
I guess I don't really have anything else to add. I think I probably shared as much as I should for today. But I think so. Now I think we should probably open up the floor. If there is anybody who is here today who is working on something that they want to share with the rest of us, to have that opportunity. So
yes.
if you do, please click at the bottom of your screen, click on participants, and then in the sidebar that opens up, you should see a button to raise your hand. And so we will be able to see that you've raised your hand. So it's not that you're raising your hand on camera, and we need to see the little icon of your hand here. So, okay, we have Rogelio here. So I'm just going to unmute you, Rogelio. So please, Rogelio, take it away.
Thank you. I just have a question for those of you running the Bitcoin node. I used to have running it since January with TX index equals 0. So when I tried to implement Planaria or Unwriter's tools, I couldn't find the rest of transactions. So I tried to run with TX index 1 and reindex option, but the node gets to a halt. It starts consuming more and more memory until it reaches 100%, and well, it just halts it. Do you guys have had this problem, those of you running the Bitcoin node? And how do you overcome it?
Yeah, if anyone in the audience can answer Rogelio, please raise your hand. So Rogelio, Brad is here in the chat. I don't know if you have the chat window open, but Brad is saying that he can help. So I think possibly the best thing for you to do would be to reach out to Brad using that bitcoinscaling.io email address. So hang on, let me scroll back up to where that was. So it's just STN at bitcoinsv.io. So that's the email contact for the scaling testnet. And so Brad obviously is the best point of contact for that.
Okay, thank you. I'll follow up with them.
Okay, great, no problem. All right, do we have any other people from the audience who would like to talk about what you're doing or have any other questions? And so, you know, opening up the floor to any questions about anything now. But if we don't have anything else from anyone, I think in another couple of minutes, we can probably wind up the first developer. Oh, hang on, we have Andrew. Hello, Andrew, you are on the air.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, yes, my name is Andrew. I just, you know, interested in the Bitcoin SV and the tokenized protocol and everything. My company, we started last year in January during the whole ICO craze that was going on and whatnot. And we didn't actually perform an ICO. We actually went, we're here in the US, and so we met with lawyers and whatnot to make, you know, to ask them, you know, what they thought about ICOs and whatnot. And it was definitely a sort of a new kind of scam. So we stayed away from that. So we just got down to building out our idea and everything. Yeah, so we actually started on Ethereum because, you know, we wanted to build on Bitcoin BTC, but obviously they don't let you do that, or you're not able to. So we moved on to ERC20, and then we realized, oh, that's a dead end. We built out this whole system for ERC20. So then we found about Bitcoin SV about last month, and then heard about tokenized protocol. So we're really excited to move on to an actual, you know, protocol that works and that will fit with our model.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't know if I should explain the idea or whatnot, but I don't know if this is
feel free to share whatever you feel comfortable with, and if that's nothing, then you don't need to share anything. But certainly we're open ears here, and would love to hear what you're working on. So
I will remind you though that this is a recorded meeting, so don't share anything that you shouldn't share.
Yeah. And this will be made. What we have recorded will be made public. at some point.
Okay, yeah, I'll share what I'm doing. Maybe not. I'm not comfortable with sharing the whole name of the project yet, but I'm a big esports player, gamer, and so we're basically building a platform where gamers can earn Bitcoin by playing video games, and then Tokenized, or tokens, are going to be a big part of that, where they'll use our tokens to be able to enter into tournaments, whether it be prize pools of Bitcoin, as well as be able to purchase digital items in our shop, as well as other like computer accessories and whatnot, and so forth. So that's why I was asking all those questions about how the tokens would work and whatnot. We'll probably have membership tokens, as well as coupons and tickets and all of those sort of things. And so yeah, we're really excited to be building on the real Bitcoin now.
Good to hear. Very nice to hear, and glad to have you along. I'm just going to answer a question from Jack. I mentioned at the beginning of this dev forum that a big task of ours now this year is to link up business-minded people and businesses that already exist with the developers in the space and the developers which are coming to the space, so that you can match your ideas and your dreams and all the things you want to do and bring it to the business world, actually grow and monetize. So this, exactly what we're doing here talking. There's been a lot of focus on developers over the last 10 years, and that's fine, that's great, but now that we're not messing around with the whole scaling stuff anymore and people are learning how to use the things, a lot of focus is shifting towards businesses. So yes, if you have business ideas, there's something coming out soon which I'm doing myself, but I'm sure others will do other things as well, where you can help build a team. You can use people's projects to build a team and find developers. You can use things like these developer meetings, listen and discuss and chat, and the forums and the Atlantis Slack, and meet developers. Or if you're a developer and you want to find someone with a business mind, yeah, I will say, please don't be like Nick Szabo. I'm sorry to say names, but developers, you occasionally might get someone who is amazing at everything. Like Craig is pretty damn amazing at a lot of stuff, but no one is perfect at everything. Just because a developer can code a platform with Bitcoin doesn't mean they're a business genius. So if you're a developer, you feel you're not a business genius, work with some business people. They shine, you shine, together you both shine, and you make something beautiful. So yeah, like Brendan's saying, James is being the more cautious, business-minded person, and I'm really looking forward to see what he's bringing to the space. He's probably been very wise about it, to be honest, because considering how much people are trying to copy in the outer altcoin space, I can feel them around the edges. So yeah, I absolutely agree with his approach to this.
I tell you what, Joel, being here now with what we have, if we had released what we had back when we were planning to release it, it would have been created monstrous headaches for us, because we could have potentially had hundreds or thousands of people using what is essentially now basically completely obsolete. So he's done it the right way. So I mean, it does, I think externally it's probably, there are people thinking, oh, these guys aren't doing anything or whatever, because the website hasn't changed and we don't really have. I think if you look closely, there's a couple of GitHubs out there that you'll see stuff happening on, but it's all pretty quiet. So but there's a lot happening.
It's quiet on the front, but on the background, in the unseen, there's a lot happening.
Yeah. I think Ted Rivera has put his hand up. So Ted, I'm just going to unmute you there. You are on the air.
I was muted myself. So I need help in that I'm a business mind. I don't know about a business genius, but I'm not a coder. I have some people around me, and we've been able to dabble. But I think after hearing some of Dr. Wright's lectures on the capabilities of the MetaNet and what's going on with the intellectual property, streaming media, etc., if anybody's interested in that, we have an opportunity to make history. I've waited a long time through the ICO bullshit and everybody trying to hit me up, trying to take me to the show, and we've just stayed quiet. I feel this community, after doing my research and you know, by Dr. Wright himself, before he was off Twitter, we were communicating, and that's why I'm here right now. So I'm gonna trust this community because I feel we all have the same mission. It's just to deliver the businesses and tools that this platform is capable of. So if anybody's interested in that kind of, you know, an IP money pump that eventually could take on the Netflixes and take them down if done properly, just hit me up, because I've been working on these models for a couple years as just a businessman who's researched this technology, and I'm ready to explode. So that's it.
Great.
Excellent. And that's exactly what we want to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone in the room, if Ted, feel free to type in your contact email in the chat. Otherwise, Ted, are you in the Atlantis Slack or the ICU Slack or both?
What the fuck?
How can people get hold of you?
Get
hold of you.
I just got on here.
All right.
I was lucky to find this meeting here and make the wallet and get the money thing going to be here today. That took me.
Let me talk to you afterwards in a second then.
All right, cool.
After we stop recording, hang around.
Yeah.
Okay?
All right, cool.
Right. Anyone else
Cool.
then? Any questions? Otherwise, over to Brendan. If Brendan can close up.
Yeah. So, well, I think that's it. Unless there's anybody else who wants to say or ask anything, I think that's about it. We're at our scheduled run time, so we said around 90 minutes. So I think this has been a really great meeting, and I hope you've all gotten something out of it. I'd like to thank Brad for sharing the status of the testnet with us and giving people some information about how to get onto that. And I encourage everybody, when we release the tokenized documentation in the next few days, to check it out, and do hit us up with any of your questions, because you know, we want to make sure that everybody's comfortable that what we've built is a really comprehensive and rich tokenization protocol that can do just about anything. And with the power of the Bitcoin SV network and the ability to handle, you know, huge volumes of transactions, we're going to enable business models that people haven't even conceived yet. And so, you know, Ted, I think we should probably have a chat at some point, and I can see you nodding. So I'll reach out probably in the next few days. And yeah, but anyway, thank you very much, everyone, for coming this morning or this afternoon or this evening, wherever you are in the world, whatever time it is. Certainly for me, it's just going on 6:30 in the morning. So like Joel said, we'll be doing these monthly. So please come along to the next one. If you know people who are building interesting things on Bitcoin, or even interesting things that are not being built on Bitcoin, but which you think would be better with Bitcoin, tell them about the forum. The forum is not just for developers on Bitcoin SV. The forum is for anybody who is curious to know about developing on Bitcoin SV, to come here and have the opportunity to speak to people like Brad, you know, like Joel, people who really understand Bitcoin, and to basically, we want people to get more comfortable with the idea that You don't need your own blockchain. You don't need, you know, any of this other kind of guff that's out there. You know, we can handle anything that you want to build with Bitcoin alone, and with scale, we can handle everybody all at once too. So that's the biggest thing, is that, you know, there'll never be a risk of being crushed under a pile of kittens. So anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for coming, and I think, Joel, we can wrap it up there. So
okay.
Thanks very much for arranging this. A massive thanks to Joel, who does amazing work with MetaNet ICU and with the Slack. You know, we really appreciate it, man. I want you to know that. So thank you very much. And we'll see you all soon.